What's up, and welcome to Be Human, the definitive podcast for B2B leaders who have grown their businesses to 7 or even 8 figures through primarily relationship-driven sales. I'm talking about your networks, the people person-to-person kind of interactions, building relationships and getting business done that way. And you've hit that kind of revenue cap. You're looking to burst through and enter into the world of scalability, and you're now looking at digital marketing as a potential avenue to do so. That is what we're here to talk about. Be Human. This podcast is specifically designed for you, where we dive deep into the human experience, the critical human experiences that are involved in the sales process, all the subtle things that we do, the little micro conversions that we get that end up leading to the macro conversion where the transaction happens. That's what we break down, and we relate that to how you can use the tools like digital marketing inside of digital marketing to help bring scalability to that process, increasing the amount of leads that you have and ultimately the amount of relationships and sales that you can ultimately do. So new episodes come out every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Tuesday at 11 a.m. I probably should have said that the other way around, Tuesday and Thursday, right? But twice a week, we're dropping episodes about all sorts of different topics. Last Thursday, we were talking about what micro conversions were. We broke it down into 3 simple micro conversions. We applied that into how you can use digital marketing. I definitely encourage you to take a look at it. It's episode 1. You can find it in our archives. And today, we have a really exciting topic. We're talking about the business models around search engines and social media. Okay, so I felt like this is a really important topic to kind of take a deeper dive into and share it with the kind of humanistic approach around it. And I think if we start to understand how these platforms work that we are trying to make money on, well, if you can start to learn how to make them money, you're going to make a lot more money from that platform, right? So I felt like that's an important piece to kind of jump right into it today. So let's start with search. Let's start with where it all kind of started. Well before social media, there was search. So let's go back into the history of what search was, right? So this thing called the internet came around, and basically people started uploading websites and different pages. Well, it's very hard to navigate the internet. You had to plug in the exact URL. There wasn't search engines until search engines first started coming around in the late 1990s, early 2000s, when they really started taking off. Obviously, there's a bunch of them out there. I'm not going to go in too far into the depths of the search engines, but basically what they found out is they could create these algorithms to scour the web. They index the web, right? So they sent out bots, or what Google calls spiders, to crawl the web and literally capture metadata on all the things that are out there inside of the web, bring it back into a centralized repository system that which users can query through the way of dropping in a search, closest Mexican restaurant near me, something of that nature, queries the database, and then it populates the top trending or the top results, right? Well, Google started getting smart pretty quick, right? They got a huge adoption. Tons of people started using them. I remember when Google first came out, I was getting my biology degree. I even argued with my professor why I didn't need to memorize stuff because I had an iPod Touch before the iPhone. And I was like, look, I have Google. I don't need to memorize anything anymore, right? So it gave us access to information instantaneously. It changed the entire world. It was the dawn of the information age that we are living in now. And the way that they ended up monetizing that is they started collecting user data, user information, right? Why wouldn't you? Top trending searches, things like that. Keyword density, keyword volume, right? So how many people are searching for it per month in any type of geographic area? And they started to narrow it down to help provide more targeting for advertisers. So advertisers could list their ad, it gets shown, it gets clicked, Google gets paid, and so on and so forth, right? So Google still makes the majority of their revenue through ad share. And the way that they do that, right, is it's done through the cost per click model, meaning that Google figured out a way to monetize literally a mouse click. And some of those clicks, to give you an idea, I haven't looked recently what the most expensive keyword was. This was, I don't know, probably 5 years ago when I looked at this. But about 5 years ago, the highest paid keyword in the world at the time was Houston Maritime Lawyers. And the average cost per click was $938 per click. You can look that up. It's 100% true, right? That means that any of us could type in Houston Maritime Lawyers. You'd see an ad pop up at the top of the screen. If you just clicked it that one time, whatever that company was that was sponsoring that ad, they got charged by Google just about $1,000 for that click. Crazy, right? But that's how the whole system was done. It's obviously a brilliant system. It's now used everywhere and all the different platforms, including social media, which we'll talk about in a second. But the pay-per-click model became extremely profitable for the businesses. It also became very profitable for the advertisers because it gave them another layer of targeting besides basic demographics. The basic demographics originally came up right around the Draper area, right? Don Draper, where he started to realize that they could adjust messaging for the demographic of the audience, thus getting a better return on the ads. So that's been around for a long time, but now we're entering into psychographics. Psychographics are trying to catch people for where they are right then in the moment in their emotional state as they are searching for information. So now that gives us a layer down to target, right? So you have to understand this basic understanding of the concept as to why the ads matter. So now let's talk about the organic side of search. SEO. We've all heard of SEO. So many people, I need SEO. Why? I don't know. I want to be at the top of the page so I get all the clicks. Why? So I get more money, right? Like it's very generic on how people think about SEO. They just want to rank top in Google so they get more clicks so they make more money. But what we're missing in that process, right, is why does Google rank you at the top? This is the truth of the matter. You could create a web page right now, and it could literally be a blank web page. You could type in one paragraph worth of text, not do any keyword research, not do any metadata, not do any alt tags, not do any back to that. You could literally just have a block of text, nothing else in there. And that text very well could rank in the top spot on Google for every single one of those words inside of that text. Let me explain how and why. The way that it would work and the way for like something like that would happen is, let's imagine as soon as you publish that text, you happen to have a direct contact list to, let's call, a third of the world's population, that you could send a third of the world a text and say, hey, I just released this. I'd love for you to take a look at it. Let me know what you think. So now all of a sudden, billions of people go on to that link and they start consuming that content. And let's just imagine for a second that that block of text, even though it only takes maybe about 20 seconds to read, for whatever reason, whatever that text says, it captivates the audience long enough that, let's say that they stay on that page for 5, maybe even 10 minutes. So now you have billions of users coming to the page, and then they're staying there for an extended period of time. See, Google and these search engines, they're capturing that data. And as they're capturing that, that's what's fueling their algorithms. And their algorithms are going, something's relevant there. This is getting a lot of attention. Now we take it a step further, and let's imagine that out of those 3 billion folks or whatever that are on that page, a third of them, 1 billion, goes ahead and they link it into their site. They create a link saying, hey, check this out. And then other people start posting on social media about it, so on and so forth. Now you're building what's called backlinks. See, in search engine optimization world, a backlink is very, very synonymous to a follower, right? It's other people saying, hey, this information is relevant. And the higher up in your domain authority, meaning, without going too far down the rabbit hole, but the stronger your digital brand is, the longevity that it's been there, and the more of an authority you are in the space, if you link back with a follow link back to that, it's going to give it even more SEO juices. So to give you a good example, let's imagine Forbes runs 300 articles on that one block of text, and they link all 301 of those articles back to that same exact block of text. That's going to boost the domain authority of that web page with the block of text up even higher, because Forbes holds a lot of domain authority. Same rules apply for all sorts of other ones, right? So we're building popularity around it, and that's feeding back into the algorithm again. And what this whole thing is doing with algorithms calculating in the back end is going, is this content relevant or not? And if it is relevant, what is it relevant to? i.e., the query of the search. So, what all Google's trying to do is provide the users, any other regular user, the most relevant information per their search query. Now, why are they doing that? Well, it builds trust with us as users. That's why we go back to Google. I use Google all the time to this day. Ever since I first started using it way back in the early 2000s, I've been using Google for over 2 decades now. And why do I go back to Google, and why have I stuck with Google over Bing or any of these other search engines? Well, because I'm used to it. And I always get the information that I want. So they're keeping me coming back and using their platform, thus capturing my attention. And the likelihood of me triggering an ad, the more that I use the platform, dramatically goes up. And as ads start to come up, the likelihood I'm going to actually click one also goes up. And guess what? Google now makes money off of that. That's how the business model is built. That's what they're trying to do. That's why they're ranking things at the top. It's because they're realizing, hey, if we show this information, more people are going to click into it, more people are going to use it, more people are going to come back and search more, and we're going to trigger more ads, right? And now they have ads baked all the way into the pages through Google AdSense and banner ads, all sorts of different things. There's retargeting. I can go down the rabbit hole of the technicalities of what you can do with targeting, but you need to understand the core gist of this, right? Which is, if we show you what you want, then you will come back. Now, think about that in the humanistic perspective. When we do a deal and we sell a service or a product, if we fulfill on that deal in a timely manner, and we not only deliver what we promise, but we over deliver what the results are, because that's what Google does. Not only does it give you the top result, it gives you literally millions of pages of relevancy around it, right? And it pre-ranks them for you. So you get a ton of value from that. So if we do the same thing, what does that mean for our customers and and the folks that we're doing business with? They're likely going to come back for more because they get value every time they engage with us. And the more that we give value and the more that they engage with us, the more we can ask them for more money. It's still a humanistic approach. These search engines, SEO is still driven by the humanistic element. So what does that mean from an SEO strategy? And what does that mean, and especially related back to business sales? Well, if we can think about when we're out there and we're talking and we're networking and we're starting to share information, and they go, you know what? I'd love to learn more. Maybe you schedule a meeting and they're like, hey, before our meeting, would you send me like a white paper, right? We always ask for white papers. And what is a white paper? It's typically a one-page document that's very concise, and it packages up everything that we offer in one nice little neat package. So whatever the prospect is, when they consume it, they have an expectation of what we're going to deliver in that meeting, what they're there for, what they're interested in purchasing, so on and so forth. In Google, your white paper is what's called your SERP, Search Engine Results Page. That is that little snippet where you see the title of the post, the URL, it's clickable, and then you see that description called the meta description underneath of that. That is what you should be thinking of as your white paper to the human audience in the back end that's trying to consume it. That's what we need to be playing into, not worrying about how we're going to trick or hack the algorithm or this, that, or the other, and how we're going to use this bot or that bot and all this other crap. No. How are we trying to capture the information, and what are we trying to tell the audience in that about what we're trying to convey? Meaning, if I do a SERP and it's about ketchup, and I talk all about ketchup in it, and for whatever reason I get ranked at the top, and a user clicks it, and when they land on the page, all they see is mustard, well, they're probably not going to stay there long because they were looking for ketchup and information about ketchup, not mustard. They're going to bounce. They're not going to come back. So that doesn't do us any service when we're thinking about creating content for our end users. When we think about ranking, we should be thinking about, again, just like in the last episode that I talked about, imagine if you get 1,000 clicks. You should be thinking about, and let's say your average time on page is a minute and a half. Not bad. 1,000 clicks, minute and a half. Well, line up those 1,000 people, and now you have a minute and a half to tell them what's on that page personally to communicate that. That's how we should be thinking about this stuff, guys. That's how we should be thinking about SEO and search engine optimization. We've gone too far into the tech space and trying to craft fancy things, tools, and strategies, widgets to navigate these algorithms. When really, if we just focused in on our audience first, we can make a much bigger impact right then and there. So the other part to this too is if you get really good at it, not only are you good enough to get them to follow and rank or click into your page, and now that's going to bump you up in relevancy, but you're also going to give them tips on searches they can do on Google to find out more information. And if you provide that information in the back end and they find your stuff and they're clicking into it, now you are effectively making Google money, because people are going to start running ads against that, because you, in fact, are capturing the attention. The money is where the attention is. It's the same rules in business to business. The money is in the attention of the prospect and the intention of the meeting, right? We've all probably been there before where we sat into a meeting and a pitch. We're up there pitching and it's bad pitch and we're just barking off and talking and the audience is nodding off. They're playing with they're doing other things. They pull up their laptop. They're just simply checked out, right? The same rules apply here as well. If we lose the attention of the audience, we lose opportunity to do business with them, and we lose our rankings because Google also loses the opportunity to do business with them. So that's search engine optimization in a nutshell. Obviously, I can go way deeper on this, but for the sake of this podcast, I want to keep it pretty high level and just go over the business model around it. And I want you to start to think, when you think about SEO, stop thinking about how can I make more money? That will come. That's a byproduct of all this. What you should be thinking is, how can I provide relevant information to the audience that I'm trying to attract? And how can I do it in such a way that I can make Google money in the process? Because I can guarantee you that if your content is super engaging and Google can share it on multiple different ways and multiple different search queries, and every time it's shown, there's a high probability that people are clicking ads as well into it. Well, guess what? They're going to keep showing your stuff. It's kind of like their discover page, if you will, that social media has, where you hit that discover page and all of a sudden your engagement goes through the roof. It's the same idea as on the first page on Google. And it's constantly changing and updating. And Google's constantly trying to provide more and more and more relevant information to the very top. Relevant means new information. It means evergreen, meaning original content, right? Not copy and pasted. That's what they're looking for. And that, because they know that that's where it captures the audience attention, which means that that's where they know how they make the money. So I hope this kind of helps shape the way that you look at search engine. And now let's flip the script again to social media now that you have that understanding. See, in social media, the same rules apply, except there's another layer of targeting that they do on social media. Facebook is still, to this day, hands down, the most granular targeting ads that you can do is through Facebook. They have the most data, they have the most users, they offer the most levels of granularity for targeting ads. So in social media, their mission is to try and keep users on platform for as long as possible. Why? Oh, that's right, to trigger ads. You're getting it. Good job. So how do they do that? Well, they first created this like button. And that like button was the first thing that started feeding their algorithms to say, hey, this content's engaging. They started measuring then comments, shares, that type of stuff. Then they took it a step further. Impressions, time on page, time watching a video, time consuming content, right? All of this stuff factors in, and that is what ends up making a post go viral. You see, there's a breaking point for all of us and when we make content. And the algorithms have this figured out down to a science because it makes them a lot of money. It's very profitable for them to do this. When a post goes viral, seemingly out of nowhere, meaning you didn't put any hashtags or anything, I had this experience. I posted a video of my son jumping off of a little cliff at a water park, and it got like a 500,000 views. It got like 30,000 likes out of nowhere. No hashtags, no nothing fancy. It was just like, oh, boy takes after his dad. That's all it was, and it blew up. What ends up happening is they realize, okay, once people start consuming this, the likelihood of engagement goes up. And the more engaging your content is, the more those social media engines want to share it, because that means that those folks are taking time to consume that content, right? And if they're taking more time, they're going to have more likelihood of seeing ads and triggering ads. And in social media, you also can get cost per impression, right? It's not just cost per click, it's also cost per impression sometimes too. So even just watching something, literally Facebook's making money. So the whole concept here on both sides of the house is the same business concept that you currently do in your business today, which is trying to capture attention of your prospects, whether it be in person at a networking event, whether it be through DMs, through cold calls, through cold texts, through emails, through all the different ways that we try and get attention, mailers, billboards. We're trying to get attention on our stuff, eyeballs on our stuff, because it increases the likelihood that we're going to convert. The same rules apply here. So now what? Now what do you do with this information? Well, the content that you produce, you should be thinking, again, not about how you can make money. You got to get rid of that. You have to think about how you're going to service the humans that you're interacting with. Because at the end of the day, it's a human that's driving this algorithm. It's a human's engagement that's driving this algorithm to say, this is viral, go show it everywhere because we're going to make a bunch of money. So you need to become a master at understanding what your audience actually cares about and how you can bring them value at a very, very rapid pace. Meaning it's done in a very small window, like 3 seconds, you got to capture them with some type of a hook. That's why there's all this content out there as far as ways to craft hooks to get people hooked into your content. A good example of a hook is like, here's something I wish I knew back when I was 30 and now I'm 40. That's a hook, because what's going to tell is people are going to like, okay, I want to watch this to see what this guy knows. Like, what's the lesson? And then you go into the value. The value is the actual story. Well, when I was 30, I did X, Y, and Z and da da da. You start going into the value, and you'll start to see audience slowly start to drip off at that point. But if you're good at it, you'll pepper back in the hooks and you'll keep their engagement. You'll do exciting visuals and other things. And then you end it with the payoff. The payoff is the antidote to the hook. It is the actual thing. The lesson. This is the lesson. And then you end the content right there. You don't talk anymore. You don't say it twice. You end it immediately right there. Now, this isn't rocket science. If you're, think about a human engagement, think about a human interaction when you are talking to somebody. And it doesn't even have to be a prospect in this case. Let's say it's about, you get pulled over for a speeding ticket and you're trying to get out of it. Well, you can craft a story in such a way that you can tell the officer, like, yeah, officer, I know I was speeding, but, I probably wouldn't have been speeding if, it wasn't for my wife and, what she's going through. But I know that you don't care about that. I know I just broke the law. Well, what's your wife going through? He's naturally going to want to know. Now, obviously, I'm not using this as an example for you to get out of all your speeding tickets. Please don't, use this for that disclaimer. It's just an example. But if you pepper something in there where he now has an intrigue to your story, he's going to want to hear that story. So then you can go about the value. Well, my wife just went through a miscarriage. We just got pregnant again and we're having some complications. I got to rush home to get her into the hospital and make sure she's okay. That's going to be a different message. He might let you go, right? So The same rules apply when we're creating social media content. And here's the truth of this is that we're all actually really good at this. I would dare to say that most people are, especially in B2B sales, even if you're entry and even if you're not a top performer, we still have something about us that we're a decent enough communicator to even be in that position in the first place. Because guess what? You had to sell yourself to get yourself into that position in the first place. Even if you're a business owner, you have to sell yourself into the position of being a business owner. You don't just become a business owner because you decide you're going to be a business owner. Sure, you can, but you won't have a business. A business means that you're actually generating business, right? Generating revenue. So my point is that we all actually have this baked into us already. We just, for whatever reason, when we get on social media, when we get on these digital platforms, we just put this lens on of like, oh, I gotta put in 50 hashtags. I gotta tag everybody in my Rolodex. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. Oh, this guru said do this. This guru said that. And we get into shiny object and we try and do all these hacks. When really, if we just took a step back and we took a moment to kind of digest what we're trying to actually do and who we're trying to talk to, and if we put that user and their time as the primary influence for why we're putting out the content, meaning we're truly trying to bring them value in a very short window, that's where you will start to see success and your stuff will get shared more and you will gain more traffic around it. And guess what? As you get good at this, you then start figuring out, okay, how can I keep that person engaged on this piece of content and then get them into the next piece of content with me? And can I do that in such a way that an ad can be placed by the platform so they can make some money in the process too? See, if you team up with the platforms and you look at them as your business partner and you look at the platform as like, let's make money together, the platforms will continue to show your stuff and you will continue to make money because they are making money off of you. That's where we have to kind of keep this in check. That's the type of stuff that we need to be thinking about as we break down these two business models between social and search. And again, the best part about this whole thing is not based on the algorithm. The algorithm is optimized for the human experience, for human attention. The whole basis to this is the human and the human experience. We are trying to deliver an experience back to the humans that we interact with. From the second that we contact them in the initial prospecting phase to the time that we give them the deliverable at the end of the project, right? We are giving them an experience. And the better the experience we create, the happier the customer is going to be, and the more likely they're going to come back and do more business with you. It's pretty basic understanding. Most businesses that are not tech savvy, that have built their businesses up this way, they understand this better than anybody else out there in the marketplace. And that's what makes them so effective at what they do and why they've been around for as long as they have, why they've grown the business the way that they have, and so on and so forth. The next iteration of that is to offer that same level of service and human experience at scale. That's where digital content comes into play, because now you can take the same message and you can send that to thousands of people and capture thousands of eyeballs at once. But you have to be really, really, really good at delivering value to all of those people in that process. So again, this is one of those examples where if you think about something, we've all done it, where we've been at these networking events, and I keep using networking events, just I think it's a simple one that most of us can relate to. It can also be conferences. Conferences, a lot of networking gets done and interaction and meeting people and so on and so forth. But think about these public events where there's a lot of people and we tell them a little bit about the story. You know that this works whenever you tell something and you know you're onto a good nugget, when all of a sudden everybody that's talking is like, ooh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Tell me more. In fact, how do you think this podcast got started in the first place? It's because I was at networking events. I did the market research. I called a bunch of people. I talked to tons of people, hundreds, if not thousands of people, about this concept of the human-centric experience inside of digital marketing that we're missing. And every single time I brought that up, guess what? I got the same exact reaction. Mind blown. I want to know more. Well, here we are. And now I'm creating a scalable solution for this in which I can now service this message to people well far beyond my physical network and my networks, and my second degree, and my third degree, and my fourth degree connections. I can send this out to total strangers, hopefully able to help them, knowing that there will be a small percentage of folks that this will resonate so much with that they will want to come back and do business with me. It's the same exact model as these social media platforms and these search engine platforms. They're no different than you and I. And that's the part that we miss. We put them up on a pedestal. We think it's this big complicated thing. And yes, there is a lot of technical things that you can do to optimize. And there's a lot of things that you can do, and I'm not discrediting any of that. But if you are missing the heart and core and soul of your message, which is I'm trying to bring value back to humans, to the audience, the whole thing's going to fail. It doesn't matter how much tech you add into it, how much money you want to throw at it. It really doesn't matter. You're not going to get anywhere. It's kind of like if you were to book, say, a keynote speech at an event. Let's say you're going to host your own event. So you invite a bunch of people out, and let's say it's a pretty good turnout. A couple hundred people show up. And there you are, you walk up on stage, and you begin your talk. And you just go on and on and on and on and on about you. You talk about you, your experiences, how you got to where you are, so on and so forth. And the audience is going to slowly start picking up their phones and starting to get disengaged because it's just not compelling. Versus if you come in and you tell your audience's story. It's a very different story. Your audience's story is what is the pain points of your audience and where can you provide value to them? And then you can use that to relate it back to your story and bring your story out through that, but not all at once. Not a whole big bio or autobiography of yourself. It's not about that. It's about showing that you have relation to the pain that they're going through and to help them understand that you get it. And you do that by letting them know that you understand. That's how you do it. It's through empathy. It's through caring about the people. And you also have to realize too, and this is so true in the digital space when you're starting off in the digital content world, both on social and in search. Every single human being that engages with your stuff, if it's their very first time and they're a stranger to your stuff and they engage with your stuff, it doesn't matter how good your stuff is, how amazing your products are. It doesn't matter if you have the freaking cure for cancer and world hunger and AIDS and everything else wrapped up in this tight little neat packet, and all you have to do is pay $1.99 per month and blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter how good of your stuff is. All that matters to them in that moment is, are they getting any type of value out of it? Is there something in it for them right then and there? And if you start to build that value, if you start to build that audience, and then all of a sudden they start to learn more about you because they're naturally going to become inquisitive. They're going to start to chase you. They're going to go to your LinkedIn profile and see where you work. They're going to go to your website and see what your company does. They're going to discover your service, and they might discover that amazing product that you have. And the likelihood of them buying is going to be so much higher than if you just jumped on and you're like, hey, here's my shit. Here's all my features and benefits. Buy it. Right? Like, nobody wants to be sold that way, and nobody gets sold anymore anyways. We're in a buyer's market. People buy. They don't get sold to. People buy. And they buy based off emotions, and they buy based off of trust, and they buy because they believe that by purchasing this thing, whatever it may be, that their future is going to look different. They're buying what they believe is going to be a better future. So I hope this helps you guys as you start to really unpack, especially if you're in that space. And I know a lot of you are, especially in that market, like I mentioned, that B2B market that's cresting, the 8-figure range, and you're trying to punch into the next realm. You're likely looking at like, okay, we need SEO. I literally had a client come to me, we need SEO. And my immediate reaction to them before I even went into the pitch of what we could do, I just said, why? And they didn't have a good answer for that, aside from that they were trying to boost their revenues, right? So I get it, but why? Why do you want to boost your revenues? Why? You keep asking it down until it's like, we're trying to help this person with this thing do this. And the way that we do it is through this, this, and this. And then you get the whole picture. And it's like, aha, you're trying to help somebody. Well, can you help somebody in 3 seconds? You can. There is ways to help people in 3 seconds. Can you then help them in 30? Can you then help them in 60? Could you help them through a long form, such as like a podcast? And of course, as you start to figure this out and you chart this out for yourself, you're going to have different levels in which that you're going to be able to help those people, very similar to how you package your services or products in the way of features. Certain features are going to make sense when they first buy your product. They're going to want the initial feature. They probably don't want every single feature out of the gates. They're probably only fixated on 1, maybe 2, at most 3 features that it's going to solve for their immediate need, their immediate emotional state, their immediate psychographic. And then after they use those features, they see the results, they have a better experience, they're going to naturally become more intrigued to then go look at the other features. And they're going to start using more of your product, and therefore you can make more money. So that's the name of the game, guys. And we need to break it down that way in the way we look at doing this type of content. And the last thing I'll leave on this is we should be treating digital content, both on social media and on the web, as if we're writing our own novel. What is the goal of a novel if you're trying to become a best-selling author? The goal is not to sell as many copies. Yeah, of course, that's the macro goal. The goal is to get people to pick the book up first. Because whether we say, don't judge a book by its cover, we all judge a book by its cover. You shouldn't, I get it, but we do, because we're humans, and it is what it is. We're going to judge a book by its cover. We're going to stereotype, we're going to call it what it is. We don't like the colors. And had that happen to me before we rebranded. My colors were red. I almost lost a deal because the owner of the company that I was trying to do the deal with didn't like my branding. They're judging a book by its cover. They didn't care about what was underneath. They just simply didn't like the branding. So we do that. It's just part of what we do. So step 1, get the person to pick up the book and look at it, touch it. That's step 1. Step 2, turn the page. That's the next goal. Can you get them to turn the page? Maybe even before they turn the page, can you get them to flip to the back of the book to read a gist, the white paper, if you will. The SERP is the back of the book. And get them to read the back of the book. Can you then get them to maybe thumb through and read a couple pages on a skim? Great. They close the book, and then they bring that book, and then they go buy it. That solved the first problem, but that's not what's going to make it a bestseller. They need to then go home and pick that book back up, and they need to actually read the book. Why? Because at the end of the book, if the book and the story of what the book does its job well, they're going to be blown away by it. And what are they going to do with that book after they're done reading it? They're going to go recommend it to their friends, to their colleagues, so on and so forth. In business, we do this all the time. We all recommend books all the time, all sorts of different books for all sorts of different reasons. And it drives sales. It drives word of mouth. It creates virality. That's what it does. And the whole thing there was never about the book. It was about the story. How was the story told? From the second that you looked at it, to the second that you touched it, to the second that you read the white paper or the short summary, to the second that you read the very first word, to you completing the last chapter. That's the whole story. And we need to think about our marketing and everything else we do digitally in the very same regard. And it's no different if we were to meet a human being in person, collect their number, book an appointment, have further meetings with them. We're learning their story. They're learning our story. We're going through this process of storytelling. And then through the process of storytelling, we're building rapport. We might get a friend out of it. We might get someone that becomes a mentor to us in our business, an advocate, an affiliate, so on and so forth, that will help promote the business. It's all about the story that you tell. And just like a good book, where the goal of reading the first sentence is to read the second sentence and to read the next sentence and so on and so forth, we should be thinking about it the same exact way when we're putting out content, both in the SEO world as well as in the social media world. So I hope this helps, guys. Again, this is Be Human, the definitive podcast for B2B owners who have grown their businesses to 7 to 8 figures through relationship-driven sales, and they're looking to now break through that revenue cap and get into scalability by leveraging the tools of digital marketing. I'm Danny Marawinski. I'm your host. New podcasts are released every Tuesday at 11 a.m. and Thursdays at 11 a.m. This is like your masterclass in breaking down these human experiences and translating them over to the digital space. And by the way, guys, just be humans.